Hello everybody and welcome to another coin flip battle. Today we've got two governors going at it. It's John Bel Edwards for the Democrats up against Phil Scott for the Republicans. And this was suggested to me a while back in the comments, trying to get through a lot of these. So it's going to be Louisiana against Vermont. And who do you root for in this one? The conservative Democrat or the liberal Republican? I'm hoping for a lot of lead changes. Hopefully it comes down to the very end. And we don't need any more backstory. Let's get into the flipping. First is Alaska. Let's do it. Who's going to draw first blood? That would be John Bel Edwards. He's going to take 3. And the next state, that's Hawaii. That has 4 electoral votes. That's going to be another one for Edwards. Next, it's Washington. We've got 12 votes. And those 12 are going to go to Phil Scott. Phil Scott claims his first state. Next, it's Oregon. That has 8 electoral votes. And that's going to be another one for Phil Scott. Next, it's California. There's a lot of votes here. There's 54. So let's flip it. Who's going to be in the lead? That would be John Bel Edwards. He's going to take California. Next state, it's Nevada. Purple state with 6 electoral votes, and those are going to also go to Bel Edwards. Now we've got Idaho. That has 4 electoral votes. Phil Scott looking for tails, but it's heads. That's going to go back to Edwards. Now we've got Utah. 6 more electoral votes. Another one for John Bel Edwards. Next, Arizona. 11 electoral votes. Phil Scott. He's going to add 11 more to his total. And we go all the way up to Montana. That has 4 electoral votes. And that's going to go heads for John Bel Edwards. Next state, it's Wyoming. 3 electoral votes. It's not a lot, but they're going to go toward John Bel Edwards. Next, Colorado. That has 10 electoral votes, and that's going to go toward Phil Scott. Next state, New Mexico. 5 electoral votes. Going to Phil Scott. Next state, North Dakota. There's 3 electoral votes, and those are going to go toward Bel Edwards. Next, South Dakota. 3 more electoral votes, also going to John Bel Edwards. Next, it's Nebraska. Here's at large, 2 electoral votes. Phil Scott, he's going to get 2 more. How about Nebraska's first? 1 electoral vote. Phil Scott, 2 in a row. Next, Nebraska's second. 1 more electoral vote here. Phil Scott, 3 straight for him. Next, Nebraska's third. Can Phil Scott sweep Nebraska? Yep, he's got 1 more, sweeps Nebraska, and we go down to Kansas. We've got 6 electoral votes just waiting to be grabbed, and they're going to be snagged by Phil Scott. Now we've got Oklahoma. It's the Sooner State, and that has 7 electoral votes. And that's another one for Phil Scott. So Phil Scott tiptoeing back into this battle. He's won 6 in a row. Can he make it a lucky 7 on Texas? That has 40 electoral votes. That would put him into the lead if he can get it. John Bel Edwards looking to thwart this streak from Scott. Here's the flip. Who's going to get these? That's heads. That's going to go to John Bel Edwards. So now Phil Scott, he's got to play from behind. Let's see what he does on Minnesota. That's the next state. It has 10 electoral votes. And it's going to go red for Phil Scott. Iowa, that has 6 votes. Let's see what happens. That's going to go back toward John Bel Edwards. Next, Missouri. 10 more votes. Heads again for John Bel Edwards. Next, Arkansas. 6 electoral votes. Another one for Bel Edwards. That takes us down to his home state, Louisiana. Can John Bel Edwards claim his home state? Yes, he can. That's another one, and that's 4 in a row. Phil Scott got a snap out of it. Let's see if he can on Wisconsin. 10 votes. That's going to go red. Phil Scott, he's got 10 more. He could get 19 more. If he wins Illinois, that's the next flip. But that is going to go back toward Bel Edwards. Next, it's Michigan. It's 15 electoral votes here on the table, coming to John Bel Edwards. Next, it's Indiana. Who's going to snag these 11 electoral votes? That would be Phil Scott. How about Kentucky, who wants 8 electoral votes? That's going to be John Bel Edwards. Somebody's going to get 11 more. Tennessee has those electoral votes, and those are going to go toward Bel Edwards. Next, it's Mississippi. 6 votes here, and those go toward Phil Scott, and Scott cracks 100 now, but still trails by more than 100. Next door, it's Alabama. There's 9 votes here. Phil Scott with another state. Next, it's Florida. Phil Scott cannot really afford to lose these 30 electoral votes. John Bel Edwards, he doesn't care. He's looking to win this battle. Let's flip it. Who's going to win the Sunshine State? That is going to be Phil Scott. So Phil Scott, not completely out of this just yet. Let's do Georgia. 16 electoral votes. John Bel Edwards, those are going to go to him. Next state, South Carolina. 9 votes. And that's going to go to Phil Scott. How about North Carolina? 16 more votes here on the table. Coming to Phil Scott. Next state, it's Ohio. That has 17 electoral votes. That's a pretty big state. And that's going to go to John Bel Edwards. Next, West Virginia. Only 4 votes here. It's a red state. This time it's going to go blue for John Bel Edwards. Now he's at an even 250. Phil Scott, 165. Scott got to have a lot of luck here in the Northeast. And we're going to start it off in Maine at large. 2 electoral votes. That's heads, and that's going to John Bel Edwards. Next, Maine's first. A single electoral vote here. That's a red one for Phil Scott. We've got Maine second. Another electoral vote. Tails, Phil Scott takes another one. Next, it's New Hampshire. 4 electoral votes here. Bel Edwards claims New Hampshire. Next, it's Vermont, Phil Scott's home state. He's super popular. They love him here. Let's see what happens on the coin flip battle. It'd be embarrassing if he doesn't win it. He does win it, though. Claims his home state. But next up, we've got a huge state. It's New York. 28 electoral votes. Phil Scott has to win it or it's game over. His back is against the wall. Here's the flip. Can he win it? Yes. Tails for Phil Scott. Scott with a little bit more breathing room. Still not much, though. Next is Massachusetts. I think they would like Phil Scott in Massachusetts. Let's see if they do. Here's the coin flip. That is unfortunately going to go to John Bel Edwards. And now Phil Scott is 1 state away from taking a loss here. Let's do Connecticut. Everything is on the line right here. John Bel Edwards looking for a win. He doesn't get it. That goes toward Phil Scott. Scott cracks 200. Next, it's Rhode Island. Same situation. Bel Edwards looking for the win. Scott looking to stay in it for one more flip. And he does. It's tails. So Phil Scott survives one more flip. But next up, it's New Jersey. It's 14 electoral votes. Phil Scott hanging on by a thread. Here's the flip. Can he survive one more? Yes, he can. It's another one for Phil Scott. Scott got to run the table. He's doing everything he can so far. Next, it's Delaware. Only 3 electoral votes. But in this battle, that's enough to win if you're John Bel Edwards. Here's the flip. Phil Scott runs out of gas on Delaware. That goes toward John Bel Edwards. He's at 270. That's enough to clinch. Let's finish it up, though, with Maryland. That has 10 electoral votes. And that's one for John Bel Edwards. Next, Washington, D.C. We've got 3 electoral votes here. That's tails. Phil Scott claims 3 more. Next is Pennsylvania. 19 votes here. Going to Phil Scott. Last flip is Virginia. Let's do it. Here it is. 13 electoral votes, and that's going to go to John Bel Edwards. So the final total is John Bel Edwards with 293. Phil Scott, 245. Phil Scott ran out of gas there at the end. He trailed pretty bad in the middle. He started to make a little bit of a move. It fell short. John Bel Edwards pulls it off. It's not the landslide it was shaping up to be. The suspense was building at the end. Ultimately, it did not pan out, but another great coin flip in the books. So let me know in the comments, who were you rooting for on this one? Did you have Scott and Bel Edwards winning their home states? What do you think of this map? Let me know down below on your way out. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Join if you'd like to support the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.